They warned him the serum would end his humanity, but it awakened something far worse. The storm outside sounded like a living creature. Winds howled through the broken walls of the outpost, throwing sand and sparks into the air. Inside, Lieutenant Aaron Vale lay on a medical table, blood seeping through the hole in his armor. The smell of burnt metal and ozone filled the room. Every breath came harder than the last. The alien plasma had torn through his chest, leaving a wound no human medicine could fix. Across from him, Dr. Lyra Ameth worked in silence. Her pale silver-blue skin shimmered under the flickering lights, and her long, translucent hair floated softly around her face. She was no soldier. She was a scientist who had seen too much death already. Her hands shook as she tried to stabilize Aaron's vitals. "You're losing too much blood," she said quietly. Aaron tried to smile. "Guess that makes two of us losing something today." The humor faded quickly. The sound of heavy steps echoed down the corridor. Krith soldiers, tall reptilian predators with metallic armor, were sweeping the ruins, hunting for survivors. The base was falling apart. No help was coming. Lyra's eyes darted to the locked cabinet at the far wall. She hesitated, then pressed her palm against the scanner. A hiss of pressure and the panel slid open. Inside was a single vial, filled with a glowing violet-white liquid that pulsed like it was alive. Aaron frowned weakly. "That's not standard issue." "No," she admitted. "It's something I created for the Alliance. A prototype called Project Fenrir. It can rebuild tissue, restore life, even reverse death. But it changes you. Your DNA won't stay human." Aaron coughed, spitting blood. "Will it keep me alive?" Lyra hesitated. "Yes, but once it starts, there's no going back." Outside, an explosion rocked the outpost. The lights flickered and died, leaving only the glow of the serum to illuminate her face. Aaron stared at it. The faint hum seemed to call to him, a whisper of survival. "I didn't sign up to die like this," he said finally. "Do it." Lyra swallowed hard. Her hands were steady now. She pressed the injector to his neck and triggered the release. A burst of fire shot through Aaron's veins. He gasped, back arching, every nerve screaming at once. The world narrowed to a white-hot tunnel of pain. Then something deeper. His heartbeat pounding like thunder, his muscles tightening, his vision sharpening until he could see the microscopic cracks in the ceiling above. Lyra stepped back, eyes wide. The wound in his chest was closing before her eyes, the torn flesh knitting together as if time were running backward. The glowing veins beneath his skin flared bright, then dimmed. "Aaron," she whispered. He opened his eyes. The color had changed, deep amber like molten metal. His breathing steadied. The pain was gone. He sat up slowly, flexing his hand, staring at the strength in his fingers. "What did you do to me?" His voice was lower now, steady and cold. Lyra looked at her instruments in disbelief. "Your heart rate's stable. Cellular regeneration off the scale. You shouldn't even be conscious." Outside, the storm screamed louder. Aaron turned his head toward it. "I can hear them," he said. "The Krith, 3 of them. 40 meters out." Lyra froze. "How can you—" "I can smell the metal on their armor," he continued quietly. "The power cells in their weapons. The sweat under their helmets." She stepped closer. "That's the serum's enhancement. Your senses are far beyond human limits now." He stood, rolling his shoulders, testing his body. There was no pain, only raw strength humming through every cell. He looked out the cracked window into the storm where faint shadows moved in the sand. Lyra reached for her weapon. "They'll find us." Aaron's lips curved into a small, dangerous smile. "Let them." Lightning flashed, painting his silhouette against the metal walls. Half man, half something else. He touched the sealed wound on his chest, then looked at the doctor who had saved him at the cost of his humanity. "Whatever I've become," he said, voice calm but fierce, "I'm not done yet." Outside, the Krith howled through the storm. Inside, Aaron Vale took his first step as something new, something stronger. The hunter had awakened. The storm had quieted, but inside the outpost, silence was sharper than sound. The Krith patrol was gone, at least for now, but the smell of blood and burnt metal still hung heavy in the air. Aaron Vale sat on the edge of the table, staring at his reflection in a shattered metal panel. His eyes glowed faint amber in the dim light. The man staring back didn't look like the soldier who had crashed here hours ago. His pupils were vertical now, his breathing too calm, too precise. His hearing caught the hum of every machine in the room. every drop of rain hitting the roof. Dr. Lyra Ameth stood nearby, running scans. Your body isn't just healing, it's rewriting itself, she murmured. Muscle fibers have doubled in density. Neural transmission is almost instantaneous. Aaron flexed his hands. Feels like I've been upgraded. She looked at him serious. Don't joke about it. That serum, Project Fenrir, was never approved for testing. It activates ancient human DNA. You're stronger, yes, but it also awakens instincts that were buried for a reason. He smirked faintly. You're afraid I'll bite? Her tone turned colder. I'm afraid you'll forget what mercy feels like. Before he could answer, a sound echoed from the corridor, a faint scraping metal on stone. Lyra tensed. They're back. Aaron tilted his head, listening. 5 of them. 2 armed with plasma rifles. 1 heavier. Close formation. His voice was low, analytical, like a predator stalking prey. Then we hide, she whispered. He shook his head slowly. No, we end this. Before Lyra could stop him, he moved. 1 second he was beside her. The next he was gone, a blur in the dark corridor. The only sound that followed was a sudden crash, a strangled cry, and then silence. Lyra gripped the table for balance, her pulse hammering. Moments later, Aaron returned. His armor was scratched, his hand streaked with Krith blood. His breathing was steady, not even strained. They won't be coming back, he said simply. She looked at him in horror and awe. You killed 5 trained hunters without a weapon. I didn't think, he said quietly. I just moved. I knew where they'd be before they did. He glanced down at his hands, flexing his fingers as if testing they were still his own. It's like my body already knows how to fight them. Lyra studied him carefully. That's the instinct. The serum enhances not just the body but the mind, reactivating survival patterns long buried. You're thinking faster than any human should, but if you let it take over, you'll lose control. Aaron looked up at her, his glowing eyes sharp. Maybe that's what we need right now. Control didn't win this war. Survival will. Before Lyra could argue, a new alert flashed on the console. She rushed to it and froze. It wasn't the Krith. It was an encrypted transmission from the Alliance command. The signature was unmistakable. She read it aloud, her voice trembling. Containment order. Subject Fenrir classified. Retrieval team inbound. Eliminate the scientist if necessary. Aaron's jaw tightened. They're coming for you. For us, she corrected softly. A distant rumble shook the outpost again, this time from the sky. Dropships. The Alliance's own troops. Lyra turned to him, desperate. If they capture you, they'll use your DNA to make soldiers, an army that feels no fear, no limits. He looked at her with an unreadable expression. Then they'll have to catch me first, she grabbed his wrist. Aaron, listen to me. You can't face both sides alone. You're changing. You don't even know what you're capable of yet. He pulled his arm free gently but firmly. Then I'll learn. Lightning flashed through the window, illuminating his face. For a heartbeat, Lyra saw 2 beings, one human, one something far older, sharing the same body. Come with me, he said suddenly. You made this. Help me control it. Her throat tightened. Where would we go? The mountains, he said. You said you had a lab there. We get there, you stabilize me, we figure out what this thing really did to me, and then we decide what comes next. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. There's an old research hangar under the cliffs. If we can make it before they land, maybe. Then let's move. She packed quickly, grabbing her data drives and the remaining vial of serum. Aaron picked up his cracked helmet, pausing for one last glance at the carnage around them. As they stepped into the storm, wind tearing at their clothes, Lyra caught a glimpse of his silhouette under the flashes of lightning. He looked less like a man and more like a myth in the making. Behind them, the outpost burned. Ahead, through the darkness and thunder, the mountains waited. And somewhere deep inside Aaron Vale, something ancient stirred. Something that whispered not of fear or pain, but of hunger. The sky above Tau Cinder 4 burned like molten glass. Lightning danced across the clouds as Aaron Vale and Dr. Lyra Ameth raced through the storm in a half-wrecked skimmer shuttle, its engine screaming against the wind. The craft wasn't meant to fly through sand and static, but there was no choice. Behind them, both the Krith and their own Alliance retrieval team were closing in. Aaron gripped the co-pilot rail, eyes locked on the horizon. His vision sliced through the chaos, seeing shapes within the storm that no human eyes ever could. He saw the movement of air, the pulse of heat signatures far below, even the electrical arcs flickering through the atmosphere. Lyra struggled with the controls. Sparks spat from the dashboard. "We can't stay airborne much longer," she shouted over the roar. "Then we make it count," Aaron replied calmly. His voice carried a strange, quiet focus, no panic, no fear, just instinct. Another burst of lightning hit nearby, shaking the skimmer. The cabin filled with the smell of ozone and dust. Lyra stole a glance at him. His eyes glowed softly in the darkness, reflecting the storm outside. She realized then that he wasn't looking through the storm. He was feeling it. "Aaron," she said slowly, "what do you see?" He didn't answer immediately. "Everything," he finally whispered. "The wind currents, the magnetic fields, even your heartbeat." She looked down at her trembling hands. "That's not possible." "It shouldn't be," he agreed. "But I can sense it all, the planet, the life around us. It's like the world's awake and it's whispering to me." Lyra's breath caught. The serum had done more than rebuild him. It had tuned him to something deeper, something primal. Suddenly, the console blared. "Krith interceptors approaching," she yelled. Two of them, closing fast. "Give me control," Aaron said, moving to the pilot's seat. "Do you even know how to fly?" He smiled faintly. "I do now." His hands moved over the controls like he'd done it all his life. The skimmer banked hard, skimming dangerously low over the canyon floor. Enemy fire streaked above them. The storm's electromagnetic energy played havoc with the Krith targeting systems, but Aaron seemed to see patterns through it all. He turned sharply into the canyon. The wind screamed around them as rock walls flashed by at deadly speed. Lyra's heart pounded, but Aaron moved with terrifying precision, weaving through the chaos like the storm itself obeyed him. "How are you doing this?" she gasped. "I'm not sure," he said. "It's like instinct. My reflexes. My brain, it's predicting the trajectory before it happens." Behind them, one Krith interceptor clipped a ridge and exploded in a flare of fire. The shockwave slammed into the skimmer, rattling the hull. Aaron fought the controls, then steadied the craft. "One down," he said quietly. The second Krith ship pulled closer, its plasma cannons locking on. Lyra's eyes widened. "They've got us." Aaron closed his eyes for a brief second, then smiled. "No, the storm's got them." He flipped a switch, cutting the stabilizers. The skimmer dropped suddenly, free-falling through the canyon air. Lightning arced above them, striking the Krith craft head-on. It disintegrated in a blinding flash. When the thunder faded, they were alone. The skimmer leveled out, its engines coughing weakly. The storm was breaking, giving way to the dim red light of dawn. In the distance, the jagged spires of the Aegis Mountains rose through the haze. "That's our destination," Lyra said, pointing. "My lab's hidden under the northern cliffs. We can reach it before they regroup." Aaron nodded but didn't answer. He was staring at his hands again. His veins shimmered faintly beneath the skin, pulsing like light through glass. "Lyra," he said quietly, "it's still changing me. I can feel it." She looked at him sharply. "How?" "My senses keep expanding. I can smell the metal in the air, hear creatures miles away. I don't know where the human part of me ends anymore." She reached over, touching his arm gently. "Then hold on to something human. Remember your mission. Remember who you are." He looked at her hand on his skin. Small, warm, real. "You," he said softly. "You're the anchor." Lyra froze, unsure how to respond. Before she could speak, the radar beeped again. Multiple contacts, faint but closing. "They're not giving up," she said. Aaron tightened his grip on the controls. "Then neither do we." The skimmer roared forward, diving into the shadow of the mountains. Far behind them, on a command channel, an Alliance officer's cold voice echoed through static. "Fenrir subject confirmed alive. Retrieval authorized. If he resists, terminate." And high above the planet, beyond the storm, something vast shifted in orbit, an approaching Krith war carrier, drawn by the same signal. Lyra didn't know it yet, but the battle for Aaron's humanity had only begun. The storm broke at dawn, leaving behind a world of ash-colored clouds and fractured silence. Aaron Vale guided the damaged skimmer through a narrow crevice between towering cliffs. The mountains of Tau Cinder 4 rose like black teeth against the sky. Lightning still crawled faintly across the ridges, but here, deep within the rock, the air was calm. There, Dr. Lyra Ameth whispered, pointing to a jagged ridge ahead. Under that formation, my lab. Aaron slowed the craft, scanning the area. His eyes flickered amber as he adjusted to the dim light. No signals. No movement. We're clear. The skimmer settled onto a platform carved into the cliffside. As the engines wound down, Lyra climbed out, pulling her cloak tight against the wind. She placed her palm against the rock face. A soft hum answered her, and the mountain itself seemed to open, a section of stone sliding aside to reveal a hidden hangar bathed in sterile white light. Aaron followed her inside, every sense alert. The heavy door sealed behind them with a low hiss cutting off the storm's roar. The silence that followed felt almost holy. The interior was sleek, alien, and oddly beautiful. Walls of glass and metal, humming consoles, suspended tanks filled with faintly glowing samples. This was no ordinary lab. It was a sanctuary built by a mind both brilliant and weary. Lyra turned on the central console, holographic panels blooming to life. "Welcome to Aegis Station, Commander Vale," she said softly. "My refuge from the politics of the Alliance and from the things I created for them." Aaron looked around, his sharpened senses drinking in every sound and vibration. "You built all this yourself?" "With help," she admitted. "I once worked with the Alliance Science Corps, until I realized what they planned to do with Fenrir. I came here to hide the data before they could weaponize it." Aaron stepped closer to one of the glass chambers. Inside floated a suspended neural lattice, bioluminescent strands forming shifting shapes like a living brain. "And now it's inside me." Lyra met his gaze. "Yes, but you're different. You survived where others didn't. The serum is still active, still evolving." As she spoke, Aaron's reflection shimmered faintly in the glass. Beneath his skin, the same faint glow pulsed like distant lightning. He clenched his fists. "I can feel it spreading. It's like my instincts are splitting, one human, one..." "Something else," Lyra approached carefully. "You're not losing yourself, Aaron. You're adapting. The serum doesn't just alter, it reacts. It's reading your environment, your thoughts, your fears. It's building something new from who you already are." He exhaled slowly. "Then I need to know what that means, before it decides for me." Lyra nodded and guided him to a diagnostic chair surrounded by scanning arms. "Sit. We'll find your baseline before it completes the transformation." As the scanner hummed to life, lights traced over his body, projecting readings in midair. Neural patterns, blood chemistry, muscle density. Lyra's brow furrowed. "Your cellular regeneration has stabilized, but your neural activity is..." She paused. "Off the charts. You're processing sensory data from outside the station." Aaron frowned. "Outside?" She nodded. "You're detecting signals, probably from the planet's fauna." He closed his eyes, focusing. For a moment, everything went still. He felt the world beyond the walls, the wind brushing through iron grass, the movement of creatures in the forest below, the vibration of something vast and ancient stirring beneath the rock. When he opened his eyes again, they gleamed brighter. "I can feel them, Lyra, the predators out there. The herds, the air. They're all connected somehow. I can tell when they move, when they're afraid." She stared at him, awestruck. "Fenrir didn't just heal you. It's linked you to the planet's living network. Neural resonance with the biosphere. That's impossible." Aaron stood, pacing slowly. "It's not just sensing, I think I can reach them." The idea hung heavy in the air. Lyra's mind raced. "If that's true, you could create a kind of biological defense grid. The predators could warn us, maybe even protect us." Aaron nodded. "Then we have a chance." The station lights flickered suddenly. Both froze. Lyra rushed to the console. "Power surge? No, not a surge. Something's scanning us." Aaron's instincts flared. "Krith?" She checked the readings, her voice low. "Worse, Alliance signature. They found the lab." The air trembled as the mountain groaned under a distant impact. The retrieval team was landing. Lyra grabbed a small case from the console and handed it to him. Inside were vials of shimmering blue fluid. "The stabilizer prototype. If it works, it should freeze your mutation long enough for us to plan our next move. But once you take it, your enhancements will slow." Aaron took the case, his expression unreadable. "If I lose this power now, we die. And if you don't," she said quietly, "you may never come back from what you're becoming." The ground shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. Aaron looked at her, then at the door. How long to finish the stabilizer? 1 hour. Maybe less, he nodded. Then I'll buy you that hour. Lyra caught his wrist as he turned away. Aaron, don't let the predator decide what you do out there. Let the man lead. He gave a faint smile, eyes burning gold. The man's the reason the predator fights. He stepped through the blast door and vanished into the tunnels beyond. The rumble of the storm returned, joined now by the steady, terrifying rhythm of something hunting its hunters. The mountain night came alive with fire. Explosions shook the cliffs as dropships broke through the storm clouds, their engines roaring like thunder. Blue plasma bolts streaked through the darkness, setting the jagged rocks ablaze. Beneath it all, Aaron Vale moved like a phantom. His breathing was slow, steady. His vision cut through the dust and smoke as if the darkness itself bent around him. Every sound, every vibration of the mountain whispered its secrets. The Krith and Alliance squads spread out below, 50 soldiers scanning with motion trackers. They thought they were the hunters. They didn't know the storm already belonged to someone else. High above them, on a ledge slick with rain, Aaron crouched. His body shimmered faintly with a dull, bluish glow, the residue of the Fenrir serum pulsing beneath his skin. He closed his eyes. Beneath the storm's howl, he could feel it again, the heartbeat of the planet. Creatures stirred in the valley below. Ridge cats, sleek, six-limbed predators with barbed tails. Horn grazers slow but massive, and shadowed winged reptiles nesting in the cliffs. They didn't fear him anymore. They knew him. Come, Aaron whispered. His voice was barely a breath, but the air itself seemed to carry it. The beast turned as one toward the invaders. Far below, a Krith officer froze. Movement, North Ridge. Then the jungle exploded. Ridge cats leapt from the darkness, tearing through the first line of soldiers. Plasma rifles fired wildly, illuminating the chaos. The horn grazers charged from the fog, their armored heads slamming into heavy troopers. In the cliffs, the flying reptiles swooped down, shrieking as their talons raked through metal and flesh. And through it all, Aaron moved unseen. He dropped silently behind 2 Alliance operatives, disarming one before the other could blink. A twist, a strike, and both fell. He didn't kill unless he had to. The predator within wanted blood. The man within demanded control. Hold the perimeter, someone shouted below. The target's controlling the wildlife. He's using the storm as cover. Aaron smiled grimly. You're learning, he murmured, and leapt from the ledge. He landed behind a squad, knocking one soldier out cold before spinning to deflect a plasma shot. His reflexes were inhuman. He moved before the trigger was pulled. The serum guided him, but his tactics were pure soldier. Disciplined, methodical, human. Then a flash of pain. A plasma bolt grazed his shoulder, searing through skin. The glow beneath his flesh pulsed violently, reacting to the wound. For a moment he felt his consciousness split, the predator urging to finish them all, the soldier reminding him why he fought. He dropped to one knee, breathing hard, vision flickering. The world sharpened to razor clarity. He could feel Lyra miles away, deep in the mountain, her pulse quick and anxious as she worked to finish the stabilizer. The telepathic link through Fenrir was growing. Aaron. Her voice came faintly through the comm. Status? He gritted his teeth. Still breathing. How much time? 20 minutes, maybe less. The serum's reacting faster than expected. It's adapting to stress. You need to hold on. He looked up at the storm tearing across the peaks. Tell it to wait its turn. He pushed to his feet again, feeling his wound already closing. Around him, the last of the Krith forces regrouped. A gunship hovered overhead, scanning with thermal sensors. Aaron sprinted into the open, drawing their attention. The ship's spotlight cut through the haze, locking onto him. He could almost feel its targeting systems humming, energy building for a clean strike. He reached out with his mind, not to the machine, but to the storm. The lightning above trembled, drawn toward him. He felt static crawl across his arms, through his veins, into his bones. The world flashed white as a bolt of pure energy slammed down, not into him but into the gunship. The explosion lit the valley like sunrise. Debris rained down in molten streaks. The shockwave knocked him back, but he laughed, a deep guttural sound that didn't feel entirely human. In the distance, the surviving soldiers fled toward their transports, calling for extraction. The mountain fell silent again, the creatures retreating into the fog. Aryan stood alone among the wreckage, his body steaming in the cold air. Lyra's voice crackled faintly through the comm. Aaron, what happened? I felt Something. He took a long breath. We bought your hour. There was a pause. You sound different. He looked down at his reflection in a pool of rainwater. His eyes glowed brighter than before, his veins etched with light. Because I am different, Lyra's tone softened. Then come back to me before you forget who you are. He turned toward the cliffs, beginning the long climb back to the lab. Every step left faint, glowing prints on the wet stone. As he moved, the voice of the predator whispered inside him. Calm, steady, seductive. You could be more, faster, stronger, why fight it? And in reply, the soldier's voice, his own, answered silently, because strength without choice isn't human. Above the storm, unseen by both, 3 massive shapes moved through the clouds. Krith war carriers, drawn to the pulse of his transformation. The real hunt hadn't ended. It had only begun. The night sky over Tau Cinder 4 shimmered with debris. Aaron Vale stood on the observation deck of Lyra's mountain lab, watching the flaming wreckage of the retreating dropships burn out in the upper atmosphere. His pulse still echoed with the rhythm of the storm, every beat a reminder of what he had become. Below him, the planet's creatures prowled silently in the dark, his unlikely allies. They moved when he willed, settled when he breathed. Yet the connection was beginning to blur. Their instincts were bleeding into his thoughts. The line between hunter and man was dissolving grain by grain. Lyra's voice broke the stillness. It's done, he turned. She stood behind the reinforced glass of the lab, holding a small metallic vial filled with swirling silver fluid. The stabilizer. Her face was pale, her eyes tired but bright. It'll slow your mutation, she said, walking toward him. Maybe even give you back some control. But it comes at a cost. My strength, he said quietly, and your link with the wildlife. For a while you'll be just human. He looked at the storm outside, then back at her. Maybe that's exactly what I need to remember. He rolled up his sleeve and Lyra injected the stabilizer. The change was immediate. The glow under his skin faded. The world's noise dulled, and for the first time in days his body felt heavy. Human. Mortal. Then the alarm blared. Lyra spun toward the console. Incoming vessels. 3 Krith carriers entering orbit. Aaron straightened, jaw tightening. They traced the Serum signal, she nodded grimly. And they've already started transmitting. My research files, your biosignature, everything. If they get it off-world, they can build an army like you. He moved to her side. Then we stop them before that happens. Lyra hesitated. Their main research core will be on the flagship. The moment they received the transmission, they began synthesis. We can't destroy it from here. We'll have to board the ship. Aaron raised an eyebrow. And how do we reach orbit in a storm that fries anything metal? Her lips curved slightly. You forget what else I designed before I ran from the Alliance. Moments later, they stood in a hidden hangar beneath the lab. Sleek and narrow, built for stealth rather than speed, Lyra's Spectre-class shuttle waited under a shimmering magnetic field. Its hull shimmered like black glass, bending light around it. Aaron ran a hand along the frame. You've been holding out on me. Some secrets are better kept until they're needed, she said. They launched into the storm. The shuttle vanished into the chaos, its stealth field bending around the lightning. Lyra piloted with steady precision, guiding them between rising electrical fronts and magnetic bursts. Aaron sat beside her, watching the horizon. His connection to the planet's life had dimmed, but something else replaced it. A quiet focus, a razor-sharp awareness of the mission ahead. He wasn't the predator now. He was the soldier again. As they broke through the cloud cover, the massive outline of the Krith flagship filled the view. It looked less like a ship and more like a floating fortress. Metal spires, organic armor, and a glowing core pulsing like a living heart. Lyra tapped the controls. Their docking bay's on the underside. I can get us in through their ventilation shaft. Aaron grinned faintly. Stealthy and reckless. You really are learning from me. The shuttle slipped under the flagship's hull and latched onto a maintenance port. They moved through the access tunnels like shadows. The corridors were alien, flesh-like walls pulsing with bioelectric light, humming softly as if the ship itself was alive. Lyra's handheld scanner glowed. The central lab's 2 decks up. That's where they'll be analyzing your blood sample. They crept closer, passing through narrow passages filled with eerie, translucent pods. Inside floated half-formed creatures, twisted hybrids of Krith and human DNA. Aaron's jaw clenched. They're already experimenting. Lyra nodded grimly. They don't understand what they're making. The serum isn't a weapon, it's evolution. But without balance, it becomes destruction. They reached the research chamber, a vast room filled with Krith scientists. In the center, suspended within containment fields, glowed a vial of Aaron's blood, its crimson hue threaded with silver veins of light. That's it, Lyra whispered. That's the source. But before she could move, an alarm blared through the chamber. The Krith turned, drawing weapons. At their head stood High Commander Varric, a towering figure with scales like obsidian glass and eyes that burned with amber fire. So, Varric hissed, the runaway scientist and her pet human. His voice dripped contempt. The serum was never meant for your kind, but your suffering has given us perfection. Aaron stepped forward, fists clenched. You think perfection is killing what you don't understand? Then you've learned nothing. The commander laughed. You call it life. I call it evolution. Plasma bolts filled the air. Aaron lunged, rolling behind a console, pulling Lyra with him. You get to the vial, he shouted. Lyra sprinted toward the containment field while Aaron faced Varric. Even without his enhancements, his training kicked in. He moved fast, fluid, precise. Varric swung a blade crackling with energy, but Aaron ducked under it, countering with a strike to the alien's ribs. The blade missed his neck by inches. Human instinct, Varric growled, is predictable. Aaron blocked another strike, sweat streaming down his face. Then you haven't fought enough of us. At the console, Lyra overrode the containment locks, pulled the vial free, and injected a shimmering viral stabilizer into it. The light inside shifted from silver to white, burning brighter. Done, she shouted. If they try to clone it now, it'll destroy their entire database. Varric roared, lunging for her, but Aaron tackled him from behind, slamming the alien into the ground. The force of impact cracked the floor. You're finished, Aaron growled. The chamber trembled. Energy surged through the walls as the infected serum spread through the flagship systems. Red warning lights bathed everything in crimson. Lyra ran to him, grabbing his arm. We have to go, now! He looked down at Varric, still breathing, defiant, and said quietly, Tell your masters, humanity doesn't kneel. Then he turned and ran with Lyra toward the exit as explosions rippled through the corridor behind them. Outside the viewport, the Krith flagship began to glow from within, the virus burning its way through every core and cell. They dove into the shuttle, launching away just as the ship tore itself apart in a flash of white light. For a moment, the stars fell silent. Then Aaron finally spoke, voice calm, almost human again. That's one war ended. Lyra met his gaze. Then let's make sure it's the last one we start. The explosion bloomed like a second sun in orbit. The Krith flagship cracked apart, scattering molten shards into the void. From the cockpit of the stealth shuttle, Aaron Vale watched in silence as the fire faded into the blackness of space. For the first time in days, the storm was gone, both outside and within. Lyra's reflection glowed faintly in the cockpit glass. The virus worked, she whispered. Every trace of the hybrid data erased. The chain ends here. Aaron didn't answer right away. His eyes followed the drifting debris until the last ember dimmed. Ends for now, he said finally. But someone will dig again. Someone always does, Lyra turned to him. Then we make sure the next person who tries learns what happens when you play God. They shared a brief, exhausted smile. Both knew this wasn't the end of danger, just the end of running. The shuttle broke through the upper atmosphere, diving toward the burnt surface of Tau Cinder 4. The planet's clouds glowed with faint auroras, charged by the magnetic storm the explosion had unleashed. It looked beautiful, peaceful, as if the world itself was exhaling. When they landed near the mountain base, the silence felt sacred. The storm had stripped the valleys bare, trees uprooted, craters steaming, but life was already stirring. Strange silver flowers opened among the ash, glowing in the dim light. Lyra stepped out first, the wind tugging at her white coat. The stabilizer's holding, she said, checking her scanner. Your readings are stable. For the first time, Aaron followed her down the ramp. His eyes no longer burned amber. They were now a deep human brown with faint golden flecks that shimmered when the light hit them just right. Feels strange, he said. Like I lost a voice that never belonged to me. That voice wasn't gone, Lyra replied softly. It was part of you. The serum didn't erase your humanity, it tested it. And you passed. He looked out across the valley. The ridge cats watched from a distance, their sleek forms shimmering against the dawn. They no longer feared him, but they didn't obey him either. The connection had changed. It wasn't control now, it was recognition. They know, Aaron murmured. That I'm not their enemy anymore. Lyra smiled faintly. Then maybe that's what evolution is, learning how to stop fighting everything that's different. Inside the lab, they began rebuilding what was left. The data drives had survived the blast. Lyra's hands moved quickly, uploading fragments into a clean system. The stabilizer you took, if refined, it could save millions. Regrow organs, reverse neural decay, repair radiation damage. We could use it for healing instead of war. Aaron studied the display. But if it falls into the wrong hands again? She nodded. Then we hide it where no one can twist it. Not in vaults, in people, in knowledge shared, not owned. He smiled faintly. You sound like a philosopher now. Maybe I'm just tired of being a scientist who breaks things. Outside, the mountain wind rose again, carrying with it the scent of rain. Aaron leaned against the window, watching the first drops fall. What will you do now? Lyra asked quietly. He didn't answer for a while. His reflection in the glass looked almost human again, but he knew the predator still slept somewhere deep inside. I'll stay until the lab's secure. After that, maybe I find the next storm. Someone out there will need help. We're stopping. She stepped beside him, her shoulder brushing his. You don't have to do it alone. He looked at her. You'd follow me into another war? Lyra's silver eyes met his without hesitation. Into another purpose. They stood in silence, watching the sky shift from gray to gold. The storm was gone, but the world still trembled with what had been unleashed. Hours later, a coded transmission flickered through the console, Alliance Command, requesting debrief. They wanted the serum, the data. The truth, Aaron deleted the message. Let them think we died with the storm. Lyra nodded, no regret in her voice. Then what do we call what comes next? He looked at her. At the lab filled with shattered glass and new beginnings. Hope, he said simply. The kind that bleeds and heals at the same time. The sun broke through the clouds, lighting the valley below. The wildlife emerged cautiously from the shadows. Ridge cats, grazers, winged creatures, all gathering at the base of the mountain, drawn by something unseen. For a moment it felt like the planet itself was listening. Aaron stepped out into the light. The scars on his skin glowed faintly like silver threads. Lyra followed him, her coat whipping in the wind. Together they looked toward the horizon where the storm once raged. He took a breath that tasted like rain and ash. You warned me I'd stop being human if I took that serum, he said, and did you? She asked softly. He turned to her, a faint smile crossing his lips. No, he said. I just learned what being human really means. The wind rose, carrying their laughter into the mountains. Two survivors standing between science and faith, predator and protector, destruction and rebirth. Above them, the clouds thinned, revealing a sky full of quiet stars.